Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure.
Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I call it John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
What's going on, everybody? John Zannis, Noah Dalzell, and welcoming Jack Simone to the Garden Report postgame show. Nice enough to join us tonight as Bobby, Jimmy, Sherrod are all doing Black Friday things, whatever those things are. But they're not here to cover what was a wildly entertaining but ultimately meaningless game, it turns out, or it appears, between the Celtics and the Bulls. Celtics win 138 to 129 to defeat the Bulls and go to 3-1 in group play, and then have to wait for stuff to happen that probably isn't going to happen. We don't want to get too deep into it, but it sounds like it's virtually impossible for the Celtics to get in as a wild card due to point differential. I think they trail not only Orlando, but also Detroit in point differential at the moment, which is crazy. And for those people who don't fully understand how the cup works, I'm one of them, but I'm going to fumble my way through it. 3 teams are going to advance and 1 wild card. It's the best of the rest. And the Celtics right now, chances are not going to be the best of the rest and get that wild card slot unless some really weird shit happens. So it was fun. Second year in a row, Bobby's not going to Vegas. I'm sorry, Bobby, wherever you are. We're not sending you to Vegas to not watch the Celtics compete in the NBA Cup Finals. But let's just get into this game tonight. I guess, can you blame them for it being one of those will show up in the fourth quarter sort of games when it really probably wasn't going to result in anything? You know, they must have kind of known the scenarios heading into tonight. Would you imagine?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same thing was last year where they needed to win by an obscene amount. That Bulls team was a lot worse. They were in a horrific stretch last year. So I remember before the game, we were all like, if there's a team that might actually lose by 25 preemptively, like this Chicago team is it. This team's been okay. But once they lost that early first quarter double-digit lead, it was looking like that. Okay, that's out of reach now. So it's really just about pulling off the win, minus the last possession of the ridiculous, like with 1 second left, Sam Hauser 3-pointer, which I'm still not quite sure. But I
gotta hear from Billy Don. I really wish. I wish the Celtics broadcast had the wherewithal to just have a Billy Donovan ISO cam from the moment Joe Mazzulla called that timeout all the way to that Hauser bucket. I did see on the replay Lonzo like this.
Like, you see Sam Hauser's face.
No, but I'm saying, like, are you effing kidding me?
Yeah.
Like this, because we've talked about the point differential thing, Noah, and like how it's just kind of icky, you know? But Joe, I swear, is straight trolling Donovan by calling that timeout. And he did it again, and I'm sure he's going to be completely unapologetic about it, which is great. I'm just really curious what Donovan's reaction is there, because that was hilarious.
I'm very excited for those quotes because I can already imagine
what Joe's.
I can do an impression, right? He's gonna be like, no, it's point differential. I wanted to win the cup. I'm ready for the cup. We're still in it. We're not gonna be out of it until we're out of it. What a crazy final play. It did feel like they got blitzed a little bit by the Bulls, and so then they just reverted to, all right, let's just win, like whatever, we'll try to get the cup if we get down to it, but we just need to focus on getting the win. And that was pretty early in the game too. So
I have some scenarios for you. Okay, you want them hot off the presses?
Yes,
okay?
please.
I might even share screen just to make it a little bit spicier for everybody for effect here, courtesy of our guy Sean Grandy. And hold on,
he's been all over it with the scenario.
Yeah, I was waiting for Grandy to put it out there. So let me see. let me see. We're cheating. I can't do my own research, and that's fine. I don't feel bad about it. But putting it out here right here, and that's what we're looking at, right? Pistons win big. So comes down to Tuesday for the Celtics. Boston needs Orlando to beat New York outright. That would make them the group winners, I believe, Jack. That's what we were missing, right? They'd go to 4-0 and be group winners there. So their point differential no longer would matter over the Celtics. That's what I knew. It was either win big, win, or get smoked. But they also need Milwaukee to beat Detroit by 6, or Detroit to beat Milwaukee by 7. Okay. So it's a weird scenario, but it is plausible. So it's not completely off the board there.
That's more realistic than I thought, actually, seeing these scenarios.
I
Yeah, it
read that
doesn't look bad.
earlier. It was the Orlando point differential was impossible to overcome, but if they won, it wouldn't have mattered. And I thought that's what I was asking beforehand, Jack, because if Orlando wins, they win the group. And that would be that. So then New York falls down, they'd be out, and you're looking at trying to. I mean, can you believe they got to out point differential Detroit to get into it? But that's what we're looking at.
Atlanta won the
what
group.
world are we living in? What world are we living in here?
I remember when the groups were initially announced. I think they were in Vegas. Is that true, Jack? Were we in Vegas when they?
Remember we watched the groups and we were like, "Wow, the Celtics just."
Where they divided the groups, and we were like, "Oh, the Celtics group is terrible. Like this should be a cakewalk."
This is not
the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, this doesn't make sense, guys. It's still a regular season game. No one's losing it on purpose. This isn't tanking at the end of the regular season to avoid an opponent. It's the freaking NBA Cup. Nobody's dodging anybody here for the NBA Cup. But yeah, so there is a way. There is a path. There's a path. So it goes to Tuesday. We'll see what happens there. So as for the game itself, look, end of the day, we're making fun of Mazzulla for it. That might be the difference. That point differential, that full screen we just put up there would be 10 points and 9 points or whatever, and it makes it less realistic. So, I mean, yeah, it was a good call. And you got to do it. And I do have a post-game comment, I think paraphrased by Jared Weiss down there, with one thing that Joe Mazzulla said he likes about the NBA Cup is that it allows him to throw out all the unwritten rules. Basically, I get to be an asshole and it's okay. And that's great. That's great.
It is. Joe just I feel like the NBA Cup brings out the purest form of Joe Mazzulla, and I really love it because I think if it was up to him, he would do this every single game. I think he would run however many players he wanted to run. I think he would call timeouts in the last 2 seconds. I think he would, if the Celtics had a bad possession on the second to last play of the game in a 30-point blowout and he wanted to fix it, he'd call a timeout. I think this allows him to have a reason for what he does without just having to be because I wanted to, because I feel like he wants to. And I think it's a blessing to have a coach like that who likes to win at the level he does. And the NBA Cup gives people a chance to actually see it in real time.
Also, just now that I'm on Jared's Twitter feed, he also said that Joe Mazzulla asked Derek White about his foot, and White told him he'll be fine, but Mazzulla said he doesn't know for sure yet. Because I know a lot of people were very concerned about Derek White not finishing the game, which is unusual. I can't remember the last time Derek White had something. But that's the update. So I guess Derek saying he'll be fine is probably a good sign.
Well, I'll say this: the worst people in the world at assessing the severity of injuries are players immediately after the game, because that's what they say is they're fine. But again, a foot, there's a lot of things in there that you don't want to mess around with, and little small bones and stuff that can go bad. So let's get those tests, and everyone can breathe a sigh of relief that Derek White is back. But you hate to see it, because being doubtful is being ruled out right away, pretty much. And that's not great. If it was like, let me see if I can walk this off, he's questionable and he's on the bench and he's still trying to do something, it was out immediately. So something was off. So let's just hope it's not a big deal. But again, every player is like, I'll be fine. Porzingis said he'll be fine, when he hurt himself. I'm not worried.
And Joe said he'll be fine. Famously, Joe Mazzulla, I remember the question was, any concern about Porzingis' injury in the finals?
None.
And he said zero concern. And I learned my lesson that day to never care what anybody says after the fact.
So not to be alarmist about it, but it's like to me, it's until you get that clean, that clean report or the MRI or whatever test that they do, I'm always going to hold my breath a little bit there, because you don't want to. We must protect Derek White at all costs. And another person you have to. That being said, if you were, heaven forbid, to be without Derek White for even a small period of time, does it even matter? Does it matter? It might not matter. Might you even improve? No, but you're okay right now. You're okay because of this guy. And this is classic, right? Noah, how many games we had like this where Celtics don't really feel like playing, or they're just medium into it, giving a B-, C+ effort. And Payton Pritchard comes in and is like, all right, guys, I'll do everything. And he did it again. Like, he's saved them from so many mediocre performances this year. And this was like otherworldly, though. And it wasn't just the shooting. It was rebounding. It was defense. It was a lot of things that he was freaking everywhere. He was literally, he looked like he was playing a different sport than everybody else. And it also just being just ungodly, unconscious, hot from behind the arc. But he was just he was moving at a different speed from everybody else who was just kind of like just going through the motions a little bit through the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to even put it into words because I feel like people, I think there's still like maybe some people that feel like this is a little bit of an insanity run or this is a fluke thing. This is just who he is as a player at this point. And he's shown us all year and last year too when he got the opportunity. But it's not just a shooting thing. He got 4 offensive rebounds. He was playing really good defense all game. He played the entire 12 minutes in the fourth quarter. So like he was able to just go throughout the entire period. And he saved them. He completely saved them. This was not going to happen. I mean, he was on fire. I know they were up by 3. So it's like those points were critical. And that's been the theme all year.
I mean, Noah and I just did a podcast because Sam wasn't there. So she kindly filled in. And we went through a bunch of teams like, could Payton Pritchard start for this team? And there's a lot of teams that Payton Pritchard could start for around the league. And at the very least, he would be a top 6 man on any team. It just feels like he has been so ready to play this role for so long, and now that he was given even like an ounce of a chance, he's taking the most of every opportunity. Like he said it in practice, I think last week or a couple of weeks ago, that they talked about him taking more responsibilities coming into the season. Joe Mazzulla said his ability to play on and off the ball has unlocked that, and from that perspective, from like of his offense, like he really can do whatever you need. He can run the show. He can play off the ball. He can come off screens, and coming off screens is not an easy thing to do, and he's great at it. So just seeing him take over these games is becoming less and less surprising by the day, and is just another one today.
Yeah, that was a conversation we had at the beginning of the year when we were doing preview related stuff. Is like, who is Payton Pritchard? Like in reality, is it a person who, whose reputation has become mythical and exceeds his actual capabilities based on Celtics fandom, which happens with certain people. You have these guys where you just kind of build them up and, they become legend. But the reality is, like, they're better for you than they would be elsewhere. Or is Pritchard the other guy, the guy that, okay, he's a nice little player for you, scoring 10, 11 points per game. But if you put him somewhere else, he's starting or coming off the bench as a 6th man and scoring 17, 18 points a game. It was hard to kind of figure who he slots in as. But now he's doing it for you, which is insane to have these types of numbers on a team with this reservoir of talent to be able to do it. It's almost funny. It's like today was a day, this game, the Celtics got in his way. Like when they checked back in, they're running that unit there, and you've got Hazard, you've got Keita, you've got Pritchard, and it's being run by Jalen out there and Al. And you see around the 5:30 mark or wherever it was in the fourth quarter, and Pritchard's already got 19 points at this point, and Tatum and Porzingis and Holiday get up, and the next like 3, 4, 5 possessions were garbage because Pritchard didn't have the ball in his hands the whole time. You had Porzingis with a prayer 3 late in the clock when they couldn't get anything going on offense. Tatum got another one where he's stuck behind the arc with 5, 6 seconds left on the shot clock because they hadn't gotten anything going. They kind of went back to ISO, let me find my matchup off a switch and go to work, and it took Pritchard out of the game. I'm like, you're literally wasting possessions without the ball in his hands. And that's not hyperbole. That's actually how I felt watching. Like, it's a travesty right now that the offense isn't running through this guy, which is, again, a crazy thing to think we would say and mean on this team at this point in the season.
John, catch this quote from Joe Mazzulla on Pritchard. He's one of the best 3-level scorers that I've ever seen. Hot off the press, courtesy of Anna.
Wow.
Everybody's finally coming around. Even Joe wasn't with me last year.
I tweeted it.
Last year.
I tweeted the All-Star thing last year. No, like you saw.
Everyone's rushing to the front of the line here on this.
I was trying to bait Joe so hard last year. I was like, "What is Pritchard's ceiling?" And he was like, "I don't know. Just shut up."
Knew.
I was waiting for him to be like, "He's a legend," but no. This is what I mean. That's what it feels like when you watch him play. It feels like we're just watching the glimpse of something. That's how I feel.
That, and again, talking about the 3-level thing, while in the midst of all of these heat check threes, the one play that stands out to me is when he takes Vucevic to the hole, and he sits there and he up fakes him and he bodies him and he leans it in there. It's insane. And that's the thing is he does do that. You see him body bigger guys in the paint to get that shot off. That we remember, Bobby and I were talking about this, and Jack, I want your take here too, but like, I remember, the early on when you had Pritchard and it's like, and then, he obviously had some offensive juice, but there's certain things he couldn't do. And the Celtics were playing like Jeff Teague and we're like, come on, like give Pritchard a chance. But you would see that when he'd get in there among the trees or get anywhere outside of his comfort zone, if he didn't have a wide open three, he really wasn't an effective scorer. In fact, he'd get blocked most of the time or wouldn't be able to get a clean shot off. This is something he's improved on dramatically over the years. And I mean, he really is, to be able to get in there, get in tight and get that shot off is really unbelievable. At a level that's like better than some of his, some of his teammates who you count on to do that on a regular basis, who are taller and longer. I mean, and Pritchard's doing it with a high level of effectiveness. So again, maybe Joe's exaggerating a tad, but like, I don't think it's crazy. Like, he is like, he can step into that midi and it's great. If he gets it and he gets somebody and he jab steps him, he'll shoot that free throw jumper. So absolutely he'll do that. Not a lot of people can do that.
I think you've seen him improve a lot. And I mean, you look at the post move on Vucevic and I wonder how much Drew Holiday has helped him, because that's something he does constantly. Yeah. I mean, Joe has talked about it a million times too this year. Pritchard's on ball pressure defensively, and I bet that's a little bit of Drew and Derek White as well. I think having Drew Holiday and Derek White has done the opposite of what a lot of people felt it would do. I feel like a lot of people assumed, maybe they trade Pritchard down the line, he won't be able to blossom. But in reality, Pritchard just kind of like bide his time, learn from both of those guys. And now, like you said, John, like I never thought Pritchard would score 15 points a night for this version of the Celtics, but he has turned into, I think you said it on the podcast when we were talking the other day, Noah, he's turned into like one of the most important players on the team. He has won the Celtics games, including tonight. So just the sort of how he's gone from point A to point B has been wild to watch, because 2 years ago he wasn't even playing and now he is averaging 16 a night.
Yeah. I mean, and we've said it on this show, Jack, too. It no longer is, at the beginning of last year, the idea behind the Celtics bench was surviving the bench minutes, get those guys in there, surround them by 2 or 3 of the 6 starters, and you can live with a couple of those guys in there, eating up those bench minutes and get away with Hauser and Pritchard and this and that, and that was kind of the vibe. And even still, so much of last season, you had these weird bench numbers, right? Where it was like, well, they had the best plus minus in the league, but they had the lowest point output in the league for a long stretch of time because they were kind of riding the coattails of other players. Now it's completely different. Like, you can't wait for Pritchard to get into games. He's been that spark so many times on kind of these flat, will show up eventually nights, of which they've had a few, and of which I don't blame them, because they're that good. They're going to get bored. And he just comes in there like this, out of his mind. You can't wait. They're counting on that spark of him coming off the bench now. He's important. And you're going to have weird conversations too. We said this when Porzingis comes back. Derek White got hurt and you didn't have to make the call tonight, but tonight would have been extremely interesting what that closing lineup would be if Derek White didn't get hurt. And I can probably tell you that Holiday would have been on the bench and it would have been White and Pritchard. And that's going to happen. And you're back to where you were a couple of years ago when it was Smart, White, and Brogdon. But now you have everyone is you want to play them all here. I mean, but you're going to run into these situations with these guys now that they're fully healthy, where it's like, well, I can't take Pritchard out of this game.
What I love about this group, though, and particularly Drew Holiday and Derek White, is that there's no issue with closing with Payton Pritchard if that's what the game calls for, and we've already seen it a number of times this year.
Or Tata, for that matter, which they've done,
and so
right.
I don't know that I see a world where Tatum or Brown are ever sitting on the bench at the end of games. I'm not sure that that would be pretty surprising to see. But other than that, any combination. I mean, there were games last year where Porzingis didn't close, and so. If a game like tonight, he would have played the rest of that game regardless of who else is out there, because he was just commanding that. And again, it wasn't just the scoring, it was really everything. And it's a luxury, because I feel like the same way that we have these conversations with Porzingis, if he's out, what do your backup bigs look like? the backcourt has not been very injury prone, but even just having this conversation about Derek White, like they have a guy who is ready to assume much larger responsibilities and already has this year. And I was worried with Porzingis coming back because he's still going to get the touches because then, even though they're not in the same position, like there's only so many shots to go around, but I don't think that's going to change because he's just starting to establish himself as one of the best options in a lot of these plays. And especially like when a play is broken, I'd rather him have the ball when a play is broken at the end of a shot clock than anybody at this point.
That's not an exaggeration. He'll make something out of nothing better. No, I swear, because I mean, we've seen it before. Like, you've seen it with the other guys. Brown being athletic enough is going to take an exceptionally difficult shot and sometimes make them, but he can do that because of his physicality. Tatum, we've seen him, kind of what happens late in those clock scenarios. A lot of those things end up being fairly low percentage. You actually feel pretty good that Pritchard's going to be able to dart around somewhere where he's going to be able to create enough separation to get a decent look in those moments. And again, as Mazzulla said, from multiple levels, when it ends up in one of those other guys' hands, you're looking at, contested step back with time running out. And that's the best thing that you're going to get in those situations. So yeah, Pritchard's a magician, and you really do. I really was getting annoyed. Like, get the ball in his hands. Like, it was when those guys came back in, it was frustrating seeing it not happen. It's crazy. It's almost beyond hyperbole. Like at this point, what you're going to say about his impact on not just this game, but like so many games this year.
It feels like at this point, out of anybody on the Celtics, I have the most confidence that when a Pritchard shot goes up, it will go in. Obviously he is not as good of an offensive player as a Tatum or a Derek White, just because of like what they can do, the space they create, they're facilitating, the size, whatever. But like when Pritchard puts the ball up, I know maybe it'll change.
What
I said, you say that now. It's still, you're saying it because it's a safe thing to say now, but it's okay to say this and mean it. I kind of want the ball in his hands.
I truly think that out of anybody on the Celtics, if you say you need a shot at the buzzer, I feel the most confident in Payton Pritchard making that shot right now over anybody else on this team. And that's a crazy thing to say considering the talent, but like it is just something about the way he is able to create shots out of nothing, make shots from literally anywhere on the floor, no matter who is guarding him. And the track record we've seen from Tatum in some of those moments, Jalen in some of those moments, and other guys just throughout the courses of games, like Pritchard is making shots at an unreal level right now. And I think that's just the reality we live in.
It's not a bad reality. It's an embarrassment of riches in this team when you've added now. And again, we talk about this on the show all the time, but it's really found money. It's not like you didn't know Payton Pritchard could play, but you didn't know he's this guy this year. And you didn't know that Neemias Queta is somebody who actually can give you valuable contributions and valuable minutes. That's also found money on this team right now. So again, how do teams like the Celtics who won a championship get better? Internal improvements, and that's what's happening right now, where you're getting, dare we say, all-star level contribution or sixth man of the year level contribution for somebody you didn't necessarily expect that from at this point in time, which is crazy to get it. So Pritchard's an obvious story. It is crazy to think this is the first night, and again, we can't have nice things. This is the first night they had a fully healthy squad all year, and then Derek White goes out with the game. How that this game was at all remotely close when they had all of their horses, and you had such a good Payton Pritchard game and such a terrific Jayson Tatum game, yet here they were kind of battling. I do want to give the Bulls a lot of credit tonight. I think tendency is to be like, well, the Celtics played like ass. Like, look, I don't think defensively they put a lot of pressure on them. They kind of gave them their space. They gave them room to operate. They created some open passing lanes to be able to get them to do stuff. I think they played a passive style of defense that allowed Chicago to move the ball around, get decent looks, and then they freaking hit them. It's kind of a strange thing to watch somebody do to you what you do to them, which was create a lot of open threes and knock them down. And that's what they were doing. So I kind of like that. I thought it was a fun back and forth sort of dogfight. So I'll ask you guys just on the game itself, how much of it was Celtics maybe not bringing their A game to the court, and how much of it was just Chicago played a dynamite game?
I think it was more Chicago, honestly. And something I'm trying to do is I'm trying to have a better view of like what the other team is actually doing and not just what the Celtics are doing, and then the other team is the other team is just the side character. And I really feel like Chicago had so many individual performances that were impressive, but also just the way they responded as a team. Celtics went up by 10 early on. They could have folded, and they really never did. And just individually, like Taylor Horton-Tucker was 6 for 6 at one point. So that was just ridiculous. A lot of ridiculous individual performances. And even the fact that they were able to withstand the Payton Pritchard fourth quarter. I mean, they were down by 3 or 4 at one point after the 19 points. So you got to give them credit for being able to hang in there. I think the Celtics squandered some opportunities to create separation. I mean, there was like 3 consecutive turnovers in the fourth quarter. They were all bad decisions on the Celtics end. But also it was like the Chicago found some defense down the stretch that they really didn't have much during the game. So I walk away a little bit more impressed with Chicago than disappointed with the Celtics effort. Also, I think the Celtics are 16-3, and it's going to be hard for us to criticize like their effort until we see like some stretch of losing. And I talked about this in Atlanta. It's funny, we had that Atlanta loss that we were all kind of like, is this a sign of something more or not? And then they've won 7 in a row since then. So it's hard to point to the Celtics having bad habits when they're not really facing the consequences. So I think I'm walking away just impressed with Chicago's effort mostly.
Yeah,
I think that's largely where I lean as well. I think the biggest thing that gets lost in translation sometimes is like these guys are trying. Like I don't necessarily think it's always an effort thing. I think it's more that the Bulls played so well that the Celtics were a bit shell shocked with what they were seeing. Like it was literally they were getting beaten at their own game, and the Celtics weren't used to seeing that version of the Bulls. And obviously they go look at the numbers. I mean, the Bulls are second in 3-point makes per game this season. I think they're third in attempts, and so you see that, but it doesn't really show up until it's in front of your face. And they're fast, and the Celtics were not defending well on the back foot. They were not rotating well, and the Bulls were creating open threes. The drive and kick was just automatic for them. Kristaps Porzingis wasn't stepping up to Vucevic enough. Like there were little things that you can look at, but I don't think it was much effort as it was execution. And I think a lot of that just stemmed from the Bulls played really good, and the Celtics were not prepared for that. And once the third and fourth quarter came around, they had some good individual performances of their own in Tatum and Pritchard that sort of got them over the hump. But I think the Bulls just played a lot better than the Celtics expected, and it took them a while to adjust.
Yeah. And again, that they kind of, it's like you hit them with your best punch and they didn't go down, and that's what happened early because the Celtics were smoking. They built that double-digit lead, and you're like, here we go, and it ended up not happening. So, it definitely, I don't think they were totally ready for it, but they were. It was impressive. It was fun. It was an entertaining game. If you can put aside the whole like Celtics should destroy everyone, smash, if you only watch the games through that lens, every game is boring as hell, and I don't think this was necessarily one of them, though there were some questionable. Like I said, Vucevic, I think, ate up Porzingis a couple of times, or he kind of played off him a little bit, gave him too much room. I think you want to get critical. I thought Brown's shot selection was pretty bad all game long in terms of the degree of difficulty, and sometimes those just fall, and that's just the Jaylen Brown experience. Just tonight, really none of that difficult fall away, midi game worked for him. I think I forgot what the final number was, but he was, hit 4 threes, had that one ridiculous dunk, and was 2 of 10 on every other shot, at a point. So it was just, those were tough. But other than that, like I said, is, a really good Tatum game, good, good efforts, good KP game. We'll talk about him as well, what we thought in his second game back, and what he looks like to you guys through a couple of games now. It's almost like he was never gone. Real quick, we want to pay some bills here, so we will tell you about a couple of our sponsors. We're going to start with Nutrafol. And can I find it? Here it is. Let's start off and tell you about Nutrafol right now. And again, it's the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand. It's trusted by over 1 million people. You can see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months. If you're looking for that right gift during the holiday season, why not consider this Nutrafol for anybody in your life who might be experiencing thinning hair. You never thought of it as a gift, but trust me, some people might be very thankful to get it. Thinning hair is different for all people. This is a physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients, supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning, stress hormones, aging, nutrition, lifestyle, metabolism through whole body health. Building a hair growth routine is simple. Purchase it online, no prescription required, automated deliveries, free shipping to keep you on track. Plus, with that Nutrafol subscription, you can save up to 20%. You'll have access to free naturopathic doctor consults, and a Headspace meditation membership is included, which is crazy. So whether you're gifting it to yourself or a loved one, give the gift of great hair growth this holiday season. Right now, Nutrafol is offering our listeners of the Garden Report $10 off of any order. Not just the first, any order. Enjoy free shipping when you subscribe. Go to Nutrafol.com, enter the promo code GARDENGIFT. Once again, that's Nutrafol.com, promo code GARDENGIFT. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code GARDENGIFT. There's something else I want to tell you all about, because Jimmy would kill me if I didn't, but it is Black Friday, and we have this 30% off all merch at the CLNS Media merch store. Get those hard hats. Have you guys noticed hard hats popping up around the NBA? Yes, you have. Okay. We're not going to take all the credit. If Noah gets credit for Payton Pritchard, we're certainly taking credit for the hard hat. Use that code Black Friday 2024. Nice short code for you guys to remember. Black Friday 2024 for 30% off all merch when you go to shop.clnsmedia.com. This is not just valid today. This would be a real kick in the, you know what, there's an hour to go and I'm telling you about it. No, it's not just Black Friday. It runs through Cyber Monday. So take advantage of this deal. Get your hard hats, folks. Wear them to the Garden. Take a picture. Send it to us. Wear it. Be proud. We'll definitely put it on the show if we get that. So check that out. Take advantage of that special deal. Back to the game. Let's size up Porzingis after a couple of no, that's the wrong one. After a couple of games, what'd you think of him tonight versus last night? Versus his first game, where you saw Porzingis things. His presence immediately, I think, was you could notice it particularly on the defensive end, and how much he acts as a deterrent back there, and has helped things, and what he does for the spacing and the offense and all of that stuff. But you can see he's a little bit winded, at a couple of times in the game. What did you think of him game 2 versus game 1?
I thought he was sorry. I was waiting my turn. I thought his offense
look at this stat line.
It was crazy. I think the biggest thing you notice in this game is what you saw a lot last season of the Celtics offense is, having a few bad possessions or stalling. It gives them an immediate switch up. Like he'll set a screen, he'll get a guard in the post, he'll go to work, and he'll either draw a foul or get an easy layup. And he did that over and over and over in this game. Obviously, the threes went down a couple times tonight, which was good too. But I think just having that as an offensive curveball to throw in there as they're jacking up threes is something they missed a lot of this season. I thought he was a little off defensively in this game. I think they switched it up to put him on a different matchup so that he could play help a little bit better. But he wasn't really moving as well as you wanted him to. He wasn't getting out, obviously, like we mentioned, to Vucevic as much. So I don't think this was an amazing defensive game, but I think the offense is exactly what you want to see from him.
Yeah, I agree. And it was one of those where it's like Vucevic was hitting these crazy shots, but that's also been what he's been shooting this year, but it's not what he's been shooting for his career. So I don't know what the game plan called for. Sometimes I know historically Joe just will live with certain guys hitting shots and will not change that defensive scheme regardless of whether those shots are going in. And at one point I was like, maybe that's what this is. But then at one point I was like, okay, he's shooting 45% and he's lighting us up here. So I think that probably he should have been a little bit more aggressive there. But offensively, I just like the shot. Like, this is not from like a basketball analysis standpoint, just from an aesthetics watching the game. It's just fun to watch him play. And it's just fun to have a guy that plays completely different than everybody else, and you dump it down low to him, and he has all these nice moves and the swing through, a lot of the same quintessential moves that I think were really impressed the fan base when he got traded to Boston last year. We saw more of those tonight, whereas I felt like the other night we didn't really see that as much. I know there was a lot of buzz about him maybe being hobbled at one point. I think people are going to watch him very carefully and very closely throughout the rest of the season.
Was that when he was going across the lane to his right?
Yes, and then he dunked,
and he got fouled. And then
not that one.
Oh, because that one freaked me out a little.
That one too, and then he hopped up in frustration. Yeah. I was sitting with my dad. My dad was like, "He's hurt." I was like, "No, he's just frustrated." But the previous half,
that one, yeah, okay,
yeah, the previous half he had a wide open dunk, like he just drove in right, had a wide open dunk, and then when he was running up, he seemed a little hobbled, and then he didn't come back in for a while and was not on the bench for a second. So all the all the detectives at home were very concerned. But it sounds like it sounds like he's fine. But I do think there's going to be an element of just people watching him very cautiously this season. And he's probably going to deal with little things here and there, hopefully nothing major. But it is, I did kind of forget about how difficult it is to watch him at points just because of how like flimsy he looks and how
It's nerve-wracking.
It constantly feels like he's on the verge of something. It really does.
He looks like he's going to get hurt on every play. Yeah. He really does. He does. He really does. But that's all tall people like that height.
Yeah, and he's so skinny.
It's like it's just an injury waiting to happen because there's just so many, like so much of him, and like you're right. I gasp almost all the time when he's doing stuff. I felt that way about Rob also. I was like, that's gonna be it. That's the one.
That was also valid.
Yeah, and it was so. It is difficult. Circling back real quick, as we said, there's still a scenario where the Celtics do get into this group thing, but it is interesting where that Atlanta loss kind of threw it away. They're like, well, that's all Atlanta's going to get, and Atlanta ends up winning this group. Which is crazy with the Celtics and Cleveland, the two best teams record-wise in the NBA, and for Atlanta to emerge. Trae Young, who did not play in that game, Atlanta should be thanking you, Trae, because if you did play in that first game, it's probably likely that the Celtics win. But that's what happened. And I'm not, but he didn't, and the Celtics lost that game, which was crazy. And as we pointed out, they needed to kind of juice that point differential a little bit at near the end when they took control there. Joe Mazzulla calls a timeout. It's the second time that's happened with Chicago where they've tried to run it up a little to increase their chances or odds of advancing. We paraphrased this quote earlier, but here is Joe Mazzulla talking about that after the game.
For this situation, you seem to like.
Yeah, I think it's it's the point differential, so you want to exhaust as much as you can. But I like it because it kind of this tournament and the point differential kind of eliminates all the unwritten rules that you're supposed to follow or not follow, where, in a normal situation you wouldn't do that, but in this one you get to look at a need and you get to draw up a play to try and get better in that situation. So guys did a good job of executing, and we tried to extend the point differential as much as we could.
There it is. We tried to score meaningless points because that's what they're telling us to do. Still nothing from Donovan. I bet you he doesn't react.
Well, I think part of it was last year. Donovan didn't really realize what was happening because there was still like 5 minutes left in the game when the Celtics were fouling. I don't think there was any question here about what this was. Everybody knows the point differential thing now. Everybody gets it. Donovan even said last year at one point, I didn't, once Joe explained it to me that what they were doing, like I didn't have any hard feelings, I think. So I don't think he's upset. It's just so unusual to watch an NBA game and to see. And DC was the other weird one where Washington started fouling the Celtics. And to this day, I don't think anybody understands outside of maybe the Wizards why they were fouling. So it just creates scenarios that people aren't used to. But I don't mind it. I don't like watching the last 30 seconds be dribbled out, especially when there's like a record to be broken, which happens all the time. So I honestly personally don't mind it. But I'm not surprised that Joe has leaned in.
See, I selfishly, as someone who's trying to fill out the scores in my article, I was desperately waiting for them just to finish the game because I'm sitting there like, all right, do I have to add 3? And then Sam Hauser hit that shot. I had to go through like 7 different places and fix all of my stats because they decided to score an extra 3 points. But I mean, that's the least surprising answer I've ever heard in my life from Joe Mazzulla. Like he likes to score. He likes to win basketball games. If Joe Mazzulla was in the MLB, he would pimp walk a home run up 9 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning. They don't care. Yeah. He wants to play the game he's playing. And I think that fans should like that in their coach.
And you do, because now it's responses like that have kind of typified the entire Joe Mazzulla experience, and I think people have definitely embraced that here. I don't think he's making a lot of friends, but he's also outside of Boston. But he's outright said, I don't want to make any friends outside of Boston. I'm not trying to. It's a weakness. It's the kill or be killed mentality here, and this is kind of what he says is, there's no decorum I have to worry about, like in his, MMA fight world, there's no ref pulling me off the person when they've had enough. That's what I love about this cup here. I get to just keep pounding away. And that's basically what he's saying here. And he likes it. And, it's raw and it's refreshing and it's a little bit terrifying also, but again, it's just kind of part of what Joe Mazzulla does. Lost in this, I do think, it would be silly to not give Tatum his flowers. This was an insanely efficient Jayson Tatum game. What's interesting, if you looked at what you might have thought was not A++ effort across the board from everybody, for the full 48, I don't think Tatum fell into that category at any point in time. I think he was like, he had game face on the entire time. And he was, you saw it with the both ends of the court, the block, and then they go the other way in the end one. But he was pretty dialed in, from minute one. This is an incredibly efficient Jayson Tatum game.
Yeah, this was an MVP caliber game on all fronts. The rebounding, the 3-level scoring. I loved some of the drives to the basket. Sometimes you see him do a couple of those where he's just feels like he's gliding. It's like, I want to see that constantly, but he was just efficient across the board. He never took those like heat check shots, which I feel like sometimes when he has a really good game, he takes a few just because he's been making a bunch, and then he ends up like his box score numbers don't reflect how good he was. I feel like that happens a lot where it feels like he's dominating, but then he misses a few shots just because he just took some to take some, and he never did that tonight. And so, super impressive game on all fronts, and I think he's just having a really good season. I hope people are able to like acknowledge the fact that despite all the talent on this team and despite the fact that there's going to be the Pritchard storyline, there's other storylines that maybe are a little bit more fun and new and exciting. Tatum's had a very, very solid two-way season this year so far.
I mean, I think however many points the Bulls were up by early in that third quarter, when they put in the lineup that was basically Tatum and the rest of the guys, he just took over the entire game. Like, he was getting to the rim whenever he wanted. Like you just mentioned, he had that nice chase down block that turned into some more points for him. He got mad at a foul call on one end and then immediately just drove down the entire length of the floor and then made a layup. So at least that was channeled into a more positive light in this game too. Like, everything he did turned to gold in this game. It just felt like it got overshadowed by Payton Pritchard at the end, so he's not going to get the credit.
It did. And what's also crazy is they were losing the non-Tatum minutes until that Pritchard stint there in the fourth, where it now exactly that, his impact and how important he was to keeping them afloat basically in this game ended up being nullified because Pritchard had this ungodly fourth quarter performance. But you could see the dip when he wasn't out there. They were not cohesive at all. He was the engine for pretty much all game long, again up until Pritchard lost his damn mind, which was really something, and what we're going to continue talking about it. Other leftover thoughts, you guys, from this game here that you wanted to hit on that we haven't touched upon yet?
I was just going to say on the Tatum piece, like there was a little bit of a danger zone there for them. Like, I think they were down 8 with 7 minutes to go in the third, and then he scored 13 in that stretch. And again, it's like, we talk about clutch and clutch shots, and sometimes clutch shots are in the fourth quarter, but he had some clutch shots in that third quarter to bring them back into it. And then obviously Pritchard dominated the fourth. But, we talked about this a lot last year with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and how they would almost take turns dominating quarters. Like, the third quarter was all Jayson Tatum today, and it was a hugely important stretch, especially when they kind of had that terrible start. And then, it's just fun to watch, and it's fun to watch him just make good decisions. And that's really what we're seeing from him night in, night out. But I want to talk more about Pritchard. That's like what I'm holding myself back. I don't want to be a meme, but it's like,
if there's more meat on that Pritchard bone, we can circle back to it. I'm not gonna stop you from doing that.
I don't even know if I have words to say. It's just...
We do want to quickly give a shout out to a couple more sponsors here on the Garden Report. We'll start with Prize Picks, place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. At least 2 players shot up to win 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, and I do love Prize Picks, particularly during the NBA season, because that to me is just the most fun to follow. And again, there's so many different stats to pick from here. And again, I'm telling you, Payton Pritchard has just been gold all season long. That's been just easy money. So again, if you want to get in on the action, you absolutely should. All you have to do is sign up today. If you're a new member, you get 50 instantly when you play 5. You don't have to win. You just get the 50 right there into your account. In addition to that, there's great promos throughout the week. Taco Tuesday, free squares that just pop up all the time, where you're basically just, it's a gimme. You can add it to whatever you do into your selections there and use it. So definitely take a look there. All you have to do, as we said, download that app, use the code CLNS, get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app, code CLNS, get 50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We also want to tell you about our other sponsor here on the Garden Report, and that is Game Time. And again, you want to get in on any of your favorite games. Are they back home? Celtics coming home?
We got Sunday Cleveland, and then we got 4 home games next week. So big.
What's interesting here is if the Celtics end up don't advance and Cleveland didn't advance, one of their extra games might end up being against Cleveland, which isn't outstanding. But that's another possibility here, because you're going to have to be paired with a loser who didn't move on. So they might draw another Cleveland matchup out of this one, which isn't awesome, but it's fun to watch because it's a good matchup and it's a good game, and you get to check that out. If you want to check them out Sunday, go in here, you download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Or check out your favorite concert. It doesn't matter. Check out the Patriots on Sunday. You want to go see Drake May? I have good vibes about Drake May going up against Indianapolis. That's just my vibe. But you can go check it out. Best seats, lowest price guaranteed, all in pricing, so you know exactly what it is you're paying for. Great panoramic view from your seat that you can see exactly what it is you're going to be seeing for whatever seat that you decide to purchase. So once again, download that Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Getting back to it, Noah, absolutely, you can continue talking about Payton Pritchard if that's what you want to do.
It's not even that I have more to say. I just honestly, I hope that he gets the opportunity this year to continue this usage rate, to continue having opportunities to close out fourth quarters, because I do feel like he's a star in the making, and I think that he has shown flashes of that, but there's a lot of stars in the making that never pan out because they don't get the opportunity. That's the whole story of the NBA. And, right now he's getting an opportunity where there really wasn't a major one. It's not like there was, guys went down and finally Pritchard got his chance. Like, he really crawled in. People forget, Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon were taking all of those guard minutes 2 years back, and Pritchard was getting DNPs night in and night out. And I don't think that I don't know that he would have known that there's going to be games now where Drew Holiday is potentially sitting on the bench, or he's taking big shots with Tatum and Brown on the floor. So it's just, I hope that the opportunity continues, because it just makes them so hard to guard. There were moments today where it's like they couldn't leave Pritchard any space. They were sending 2 in his direction, and then you have Tatum and the finals MVP from last year. So it's like just another weapon out there. It makes it so hard to think about where you even begin to address this team. And Doc Rivers has talked about it. It was the first thing on the scouting report. Don't let Pritchard go off, and then he still does. So it's just thinking about this team, it takes things to continue championship cores. We've seen it with the Spurs, with the Warriors. I don't want to get crazy here, but I think Pritchard might be one of those pieces that extends. And I'm not bringing any other players up, but that's
no. Are you upping your prediction? Your prediction was future All-Star at some point. Are you want to double down on it? You want to add to it?
No, he's going to be an All-Star.
You want to say something bolder?
It's really hard to be an All-Star, honestly. That's the one thing. I want to get crazy here, but if you really look at it, Derek White still hasn't been an All-Star and might not be one. So being an All-Star means, in this NBA with all the talent, and he'll be an All-Star. I'm going to leave it at that for now.
For who?
For the Celtics.
Okay.
She didn't want to say that. She didn't want to make that prediction.
No, I did. I wouldn't say it if I didn't want to. John knows. I'll sit here in silence if I can't answer the question.
I've taken it easy on you, by the way, with these merchant of chaos sort of questions that I tend to ask people. But yeah. So you think all-star for the Celtics at one point or another?
Yes.
Still there. Jack, do you believe that?
I think it is very hard to be an all-star, like Noah said. And I don't think I think he could have the production to do it, but I think as long as Tatum and Brown are on the Celtics, he won't be able to, because I don't think I think it'll be rare that they get 3 All-Stars. So I don't necessarily like if you press me and I had to like guess yes or no, I would say no, but not because I don't think he's good enough, because I don't think the situation calls for it.
Derek White's gonna be an All-Star this season, by the way. So this is Near's fun. So
yes,
he is. Yeah, take that, Derek, DJ, whatever. So the that's the thing, Noah, and this is where it does get tricky. In order for this to come true, that's going to require Derek White or Drew Holiday not being on this team, most likely, because he's not making it from the bench.
So, I don't want to have to think about how it's going to happen.
So who needs to So who needs to go in order for your dream to come through?
Why do I have to call for a trade right now?
Because that's the only way it happens.
Someone's going to go eventually.
I know.
I think once Holiday retires, like Holiday could retire,
and
then Pritchard steps into a starting role.
That's
and then
yeah. Lifeline.
I'm not gonna let a Pritchard fourth quarter have me calling for the trade of Drew Holiday. So,
chat, you know what to do. the chat will see it otherwise, Noah. That's.
What is the chat gonna see?
The chat's gonna say that you're trying to ride. You're trying to drive Holiday out of town.
I'm seeing a split chat right now. The chat wants me to go further, and also the chat thinks I've lost my mind. So.
That often is the case. That's how you know you're doing it right.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I'll take this.
That's how you know you're doing it right. Yeah, no, I'd love to. I'd love to say it. It is crazy though. Just keep continuing to talk about it. That like when Doc Rivers says it, you're like, okay, Doc, you're so smart. You told them watch out for that thing that ended up happening, and that to me is almost kind of like covering his ass more than it is actually giving Pritchard his flowers. And like, I told these guys to watch out for him, and they didn't listen to me. But like, I actually do start to believe that coaches are like, so we can't give this guy an inch. Like, you can't do it. Can't sag off him. Can't do anything. Like, I think it's real now. I think it's not like we got burnt by the 1 out of 10 Pritchard game. It's not. It's a regular occurrence. It is legitimately something you have to. I'll date myself with it, but like, people of my generation, like the first player like this was, that you remember, actually there's a couple, but the Sixers had one with Andrew Toney, and the Pistons had Vinnie Johnson, who was known as the microwave, and again, it's before your time, but it's a guy who would just come in and heat up instantly. And back then microwaves were new. So it was kind of a cool nickname.
Were they all-stars? Did they make the all-star team?
But it was like chance? Microwave was basically sorcery back then. But like it really was. It was like magic.
Vinnie Johnson is the name?
Yeah. And he was the microwave, and he would just come in and just bucket, and like those guys are awesome when you have them. So even if that's all Pritchard ever is, just being an instant bucket coming off the bench is an incredible weapon to have on your team.
I'm just reading up on this guy's career.
Was he an all-star, Noah?
I don't think so. But he had a respectable career. He averaged 16 points a game at one point.
Yeah, that's who he was.
In the league. I'll ask my dad about this guy. I'm sure he knows
his
all that.
Career averages were probably 7 or 8, but there was a stretch of time where he would come in there and he would just assassinate you and be like, oh my God, like that guy beat us. And like, that's what's happening with Pritchard right now. Like, you're walking away from this. Like, you didn't get beat by Jalen. Tatum had a great game. We got beat by Payton friggin' Pritchard. Like, that hurts, for other teams, because you're looking at everything you have to count for on the other side. And when you just get smoked by a Payton Pritchard game, it's easy to say like, oh, this was an outlier, but it's not an outlier. That's what's amazing about it.
Yeah, and I think the other reality is that he was a phenomenal player in college. Like, he was one of the best players in the country his senior year. And this is not his first time having the ball in his hand and making big plays. It's just, was it going to translate to the NBA? It was a question that all these undersized guys have to face. And I think he's answered it. It took him time to adjust, but there's flashes of like, he's done this before. And he always has the great quotes about like, I do this in my off days. I do this in my sleep. I pay my friends to come overseas and compete against me. But he's also done it in high pressure moments, like, in big stages before. It's just, this is the first time that we're getting to see it here.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone just put this up here, and this is an interest. Everyone's mad at you guys for being young, and I don't. I celebrate it. So there's obviously some boomers in the chat here. They're not supposed to know who Vinnie Johnson is. He played like 100 years ago, guys. Give it a rest. But somebody put on here, one of the great things Brad did is get rid of dead weight. I hate referring to players as dead weight, but it is pretty interesting. If you look up and down this roster, there's really nothing wasted. Like, you can make a case for people across the board, and that includes, DNPs tonight who were healthy. That's like I said, Luke is a guy who could absolutely get minutes, who isn't getting minutes. Tillman's a guy who could get minutes, who isn't getting minutes. Like, you've now legitimately gone. What are you laughing at now, Noah? Is Luke in the chat?
Jack has no. First of all, I've been better about not laughing when I see Luke Cornett in the chat. So I want to point that out. I think it's the new profile picture. It gets me a little bit less than the other one, which is like his roster pick. So Thank you for changing your profile picture. I was laughing because Jack has I don't know if you know, but Jack has a Xavier Tillman thing. Like the same way that everybody has their thing. Jack's really, he's very high on Xavier Tillman. It's a big part of,
Xavier
so
Tillman.
I just saw Jack light up at you mentioning Xavier Tillman. It's just, it just brought me back to last time I saw Jack.
I swear.
Yeah.
That's my guy. Just like Grant was my guy that I had to abandon, Xavier Tillman's my guy. I had to quickly jump shit. No, I'm all in on Xavier Tillman. I desperately I resent that Luke Cornett in the chat. Let's come on. He's staying right here in Boston. Multi-year deal. He'll find his way. I'm there.
This is the actual Luke Cornett, which nobody knows, but that's the best part about this.
Can you imagine?
I wrote a Cornett story at the start of the season about like him being a comedian, and I asked one of his friends, like, does Luke have a burner? And he told me no. So as far as I was told, he doesn't.
Rule number one is say you don't have a burner.
Yeah, I know. But I yeah.
But and I will say also, just basketball aside, Xavier Tillman is like the friendliest, most charismatic, warm person on the team as far as like talking to reporters and things. So I do think, I'm not saying that that's the reason Jack likes him.
He's a good dude.
There's a lot of things that are intriguing about his game. There's a reason
part of
I'm
the reason,
really excited
for sure.
But I just want to throw that in there that he was like during the finals, we were camped out at the Tillman station just chatting with Xavier.
Oh yeah, Tillman. I was next to you guys half of it because I was off
spilling
shooting.
tea about Porzingis in practice and everything else.
The camera guys with the high end equipment were off shooting the premium podiums, and I was in Tillman land with you guys hanging out. Jack's asking like 40 questions in a row. Jack dominated. Jack dominated Tillman media availabilities in the finals. It was just it was unreal.
I know. If I ever want to hear Jack be chatty, I just got to get him in front of Tillman.
Someone asking me for this. I'll put it up real quick again. 30%. That's what it is. Someone was asking about the merch. You want to get in on that merch? 30% off all merch. Code Black Friday 2024, valid through Cyber Sunday. A couple of people in the chat were asking, so I threw it back up there. He is a good dude. Honestly, that stuff helps because, like those guys with like the good dude karma vibes, that helps a lot, and you could have this happens every trade deadline, right? You want a player, you want to bring him in, you probably want a player that's better than the role that you can provide them. And if you do bring in players like that, you're going to have issues because they want to come in and play 25, 30 minutes a night. And you might be like, I got 12 for you. Is that cool? And Celtics don't really have that. Everybody kind of slots into their role right now and is okay with it. And the guys who are going to be occasional DNP CDs like Luke and Tillman are cool about it, which is crazy. They're good dudes, and they're not going to balk, and they're not going to have issue. You've really settled in nicely to kind of what you have here. And really you're looking at, again, we've had this conversation so many times before, but a rotational third center situation where you're going to play based on whatever need you think is there. I think Keita has clicked just ahead of Luke, but that doesn't mean it's a permanent thing or it'll happen every single time. And I think there'll be games that call for X as well. But when you're using them in that capacity on those nights, when you have both your healthy bigs with Horford and Porzingis playing, I think you're in great shape.
Yeah, I think it'd be really hard for them to get a big midseason that they feel can learn the defensive system and they can trust that person by the playoffs. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. So even if they got somebody that is maybe a little bit more decorated, has accomplished a little bit more in their career than either of the Celtics backups right now, there's the continuity and just the leg. That's going to be a leg up that I would be very surprised if somebody was able to actually get playoff minutes.
Listen,
Yeah.
I promise, just like there was in the finals, there's going to be a game this season. I don't know if it'll be the regular season. I don't know if it'll be the playoffs, where Xavier Tillman is going to do stuff that is going to make it the Xavier Tillman game. I stand my ground. It's going to happen at some point. I don't know when. I don't know how, but it's going to happen.
What's the prediction that he has one good regular season game?
There will be a Xavier Tillman game. Is all I'm going to
put
stand my ground on. I do have a bet with Jake Eisenberg.
He gets the whole game.
No. Oh, not that far. I do have a bet with Jake Eisenberg first to the floor, though, that he would shoot 38% from three on at least 100 attempts. So I'm not looking too great there just
what
yet.
Does he add?
I think the bet will be void because I don't think he's getting up 100 threes.
No, he's not.
But that has not gone my way.
I don't care about shot sample when you're taking like 10 shots all year. Like I don't think that really tells us much about how his shots coming along, but
he is a good 3-point shooter. I believe that wholeheartedly. He just hasn't done it in his limited minutes so far. I promise he's a good 3-point shooter. I watch him work every day. I watch everything.
Some guy paid $5 just to tell you you're wrong.
Good. Bring in the money. Tell me I'm wrong because I'm gonna keep saying
He didn't have to do that. He wanted it to be certain that it would get on there, so he paid for the right to get his comment put up there. James, no, wrong. That could be, honestly, he could be on delay and it could be saying that about anything we said, but I'm guessing it's you, Jack. It's not a big deal. That's all right. Keep the receipts, buddy.
Keep the receipts.
Listen, Jack, this is how people looked at me when I was singing the Payton Pritchard song when he was on his 12th DNP last year. People looked at me sideways too. So I love Xavier Tillman, and I do think that he could be a serviceable backup big. I think maybe you see a ceiling that I don't quite see right now, but I'm never one to shoot down a player's capabilities, so I'm happy that we have someone in the
I remember
we
were in Vegas, and I had to defend Payton Pritchard from you when we were in Vegas. I was hiring. Yes, 100%. That is what happened.
Look at this. Well, this is an auction.
Yeah.
$5.01.
That's what I'm saying.
Jack, you're right.
Thank you, Jason.
Go $5. We have $5. 501 going for Jack. Anyone, 502 want to tell Jack he's wrong? Bring it.
He gets it. Jason Tatum gets it.
I'll stay on long enough to see how far we can go up by a penny. But yeah, you're right, Jack. There might be a Xavier Tillman moment, and that'll be outstanding if there is one. But yeah, we love it. I do want to point out, since Jack mentioned it, Jake Eisenberg, first to the floor, terrific show coming up with Celtics late night right after this show. You should definitely check that out. Jack Simone also has his own podcast, which you can also find here on the CLNS Media Network. And again, you talk about embarrassment of riches. We have pretty much every Celtics podcast that you would ever want to listen to, including Noah's podcast. You Got Boston, which is basically a daily Q&A where you get to just tell Noah that she's right about everything. And she says, cool, I told you so. And it just kind of goes like that. But
it is again, a little bit of an echo chamber over there.
terrific podcasts from Jack, from Noah, and from Jake, along with Ben Vallis and Spoonie, who really know their stuff and are really good. And it's a very fun show, and that comes up after this game. I agree. Excellent pod. I know a lot of you guys go check it out. You should check all of them out. If you haven't checked out Jack's, you haven't checked out Noah's, you definitely should go looking for them because it's a lot of good stuff and a lot of good, fun, entertaining basketball talk. I think we are done. We are back on Sunday as the Celtics take on the Cavs with a shot to overtake them for first place in the East, which is kind of cool. Right now, Cleveland kind of reeling a little bit, having lost a couple to Atlanta and one to Boston recently. I think the guys made me this graphic, so we'll put it up here. It's very colorful, but the Boston Celtics NBA Cup hopes Orlando. This is what they need. Beat the Knicks, Bucks to beat Detroit by 6, or Detroit to beat Milwaukee by 7. Thanks for Sean Grandy for being all over that. So that's what we're looking at here. We're not going to know until Tuesday if that happens. So for those of you out there who really, 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 really want the Celtics to advance, you're going to have to sweat it out for a couple of more days. But again, we've got a lot more basketball before then with the game on Sunday. Check out the Patriots as well with the Colts game. We'll have a post game there as well. Guys, I'm sorry I didn't do the food talk. I was rushed. I didn't take pictures of my pies. I am going to admit it wasn't my best year. It wasn't. It was. They were pretty good. One of them looked gorgeous, but it didn't come out great. I'm really embarrassed. I had a bad pie Thanksgiving, and I'm still beat up about it. I made a great stuffing and a really good lobster mac and cheese, but my pies were not. I don't even know how to tell people this. They just weren't up to par. It wasn't a great pie. It wasn't a great pie Thanksgiving. Noah, however, put together this delicious spread here, and this is Noah's vegan Thanksgiving.
If you insult the way the food looks, I didn't make it, so you're not insulting me.
I'm not insulting the food.
You're insulting my dad.
I am not insulting. Okay, I'm looking at the.
I thought this looked appetizing, but it was not well received.
I'm looking at the sag paneer there. That's what you got there. The spinach and the cheese. That's a great Indian dish. If you're going to be vegan or you're going to be vegetarian, the way to go is Indian. Because there's great options there. So yeah, Noah, why don't you talk us through some of this?
Okay, so we got mac and cheese in the upper left corner. We got green beans, asparagus.
With real cheese?
Yeah, mac and what? Mac and what?
Cheese.
Explain. No.
You want to know how we make the cheese? It's cashews.
Okay.
Okay. Just hang on here, okay? We got asparagus. We got salad. Rice is for the spinach. Thank you. Potatoes, eggplant parm, and then that's like an apple salad. There was also cauliflower soup that did not make it into the photo, but okay, thank you guys. See, I thought when I took this, I was like, okay, I feel like this would be mainstream popular. Personally, I mean, I was raised vegetarian, but when I look at everybody else's Thanksgiving plates, it's not like the food is jumping at you looking so delicious. Like everybody's Thanksgiving food. I thought mine could hang in there, but poorly received on the internet. A lot of messages of people being concerned about my Thanksgiving. So
no one is concerned. I just think
people were concerned. They were.
Look, you challenged the Garden Report in your tweet.
I did.
So that's why
I'm receptive. I just was surprised because I think to me this is good, And we had a couple of non-vegan guests who thoroughly enjoyed or at least they said they did.
At least they said
they did. Okay, I'm seeing a split chat, which I will take.
Yeah,
I will.
Again, it works. It works. But that was a very vegan Thanksgiving. And again, people were looking for the food talk. Oftentimes you get a Wednesday night game and I get caught running back and forth into pie land. So people are getting live looks at it. It was a bit rushed this year. Wasn't great. The apple pie was good. The pumpkin pie, slightly burnt crust. Good flavor though. They weren't picturesque. They weren't
Are you known for your pies, John?
No, it just happens because of this. I've become the pie guy because we always have the Wednesday show, and I'm literally running to the kitchen, and timer goes off because I got to pull one out of the oven. So I became pie guy. I'm new to baking because my eldest daughter likes it, so we bake together. But like I cook a lot, but like pies are like a thing. But I became the pie guy, and that's it. Yeah. So I
learned one good piece of lore every episode.
Yeah, it's a Garden Report thing. So yeah, but it wasn't my best pie give. I will make it up for Christmas. I'm coming up with some real shit for Christmas, and I promise to share with everybody. But we've prattled on long enough. As we said, it's Friday, it's Thanksgiving weekend. People have stuff to do. There's reunions out there. You might be able to catch your buddies if you run out the door and head to the bars and do that. I know that's a thing that happens a lot on Fridays on Thanksgiving weekends. If not, enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you back on Sunday. As we said, check out Jack's pod, and thank you to Jack for joining us. We do appreciate it. Obviously, always good to have Noah. And as we said,
Jake and those guys are coming on right now for more basketball talk with First to the Floor and Celtics Late Night. So you want to check that out as well. Until Sunday, we are out of here. Thanks again.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal.
Forfeit's out. I think it's an option. That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.